It's so nice to be in your company again. It's been what seems like forever since we last made a recording, and a lot of things have happened. Remember when in 2020, in March of 2020, we were shocked to discover that this pandemic was a big problem, and Malaysia immediately instituted lockdowns. We suffered through that 1 month of lockdown, then it went to 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, and it kept on and on and on and on. Throughout that time, there was a lot of uninspired leadership, a lot of confusing messages, a lot of standard operating procedures which changed from day to day. We were all uninspired. We were getting more and more disenfranchised. We were getting more and more disappointed. Now it has been almost 2 years and we are still in the same boat. The number of people being infected with the virus steadily rose. After we started instituting vaccinations, the numbers became even more pronounced. We went from a figure of maybe 4,000 infections a day to 20,000 infections a day. This is after vaccination. It was very alarming. There were different guidelines for different people, different groups. It was extremely irresponsible leadership, in my opinion. Now, today, we have a different government. A government now who has the chance to correct those mistakes that they made previously. And they can easily see those mistakes because all they have to do is look back a few months and see where they made errors, where they could have improved. Now, are they going to do this? We have to give them the benefit of the doubt so far that they might be able to do this. But the outlook doesn't look that good because all the same people are still there. All the same people who made this problem a bigger problem are still there. How do we expect anything to change? One thing is certain, change is never unchanging. The only thing that remains to be unchanged is change itself. What have we got now? We have got ministers shifting portfolios, but you're still the same people with the same ideologies. You think you know better than everybody else. You refuse to take advice. You've instituted certain measures in order to immunize people against this virus, which doesn't seem to be working yet. Now, they love to throw blame on people who haven't been vaccinated, on the so-called anti-vaxxers. And I honestly don't think that these people are anti-vaxxers. They are just cautious. They are not against any kind of vaccine. Maybe they are just cautious because they don't know about enough information about this particular vaccine, this particular technology that they're using for the vaccines. Typically, when you hear the word vaccine, you are thinking that it's a panacea, that it'll cure you and it'll wipe out the virus. But this has not been the case. People who have been fully vaccinated have contracted the virus. People who've been fully vaccinated have contracted the virus and passed away. And therefore, something is not working. Is it the speed at which you're vaccinating people, that it's too slow? Does it have anything to do with the fact that you make these vaccination centers so inconvenient for people, rather than let any clinic, rather than let every clinic, every unoccupied school be used as vaccination centers, fire stations, use them as vaccination centers, pharmacies, use them as vaccination centers? Why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we thinking that we should expand our horizons and try to do this at a greater speed instead of being so slow? Many of the world have already vaccinated their population up to maybe 80%. They also seem to have problems with mutant variants of the virus. And therefore, there's something also not quite effective about the vaccinations. Therefore, more needs to be done, and we are still waiting. And therefore, if there are any other protocols that seem to be effective, why are we not using those other protocols? Why are we not using other medications as well? We've already spoken at great lengths about other medications that are available, readily available, but everything now has become politicized. Even the virus has become politicized because it seems that the powers that be are kowtowing to big business like pharmacy, like medicine, like the World Health Organization. Why? Just because they say something doesn't make it true. It has to be confirmed by people who know and know they know. And this has not been the case. There are several doctors in Malaysia here now who don't agree with the protocols that the government have got in place, and who've also offered alternative views on alternative medications in addition to the vaccine importance. But the government refused to listen because they think they're doing things in the right manner. But this is stupid. Now, what did we say last time about being stupid? Where you do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. That is stupidity. We can't say that the government, because they're doing everything again and again and again, expecting a different outcome. We can't say that they're doing something that is good. We say that it's stupid because you are expecting a different outcome. And that outcome is not going to present itself because you're doing the same thing. Why don't we think of something else? Why don't we listen to other doctors from this country, local doctors, who themselves have experience, who themselves have scientific proof that these other medications do have some effectivity. They are not saying don't get vaccinated. Neither of us are saying that. We are not saying don't get vaccinated. Get vaccinated if you are confident enough to do so. If you are confident that this vaccine will actually help, get vaccinated by all means. But for those who still have their vacillations with regard to these vaccines, for those who are still getting infected over and over again, for those who are filling up hospital beds because they have been contracting this virus through no fault of their own, why don't we think about an alternative measure? There are other medications. We personally know people who have been infected with the virus and who have recovered due to these other medications, not because of the vaccine. These people have been vaccinated, fully vaccinated, and yet they still contract the virus. What does that say about the efficacy of the virus? Of the vaccine, sorry. What does that say about the efficacy of the vaccine? What does that say about the effectiveness of the vaccine? We still have no idea about what side effects may potentially occur from these vaccines. They may occur years down the road. We don't know that yet because it hasn't been years. This is just one thing, one element. Now, when this whole thing started, the political masters were telling us we're all in this together. Is that really the case? Was that really true? Were we all in this together? No. We were segregated. There was the upper class. There was the orang kenamaan. These VIPs could do what they want because apparently the vaccine didn't recognize, the vaccine recognized rather. Not the vaccine, I'm sorry. The virus recognized that they were the VIPs and therefore they don't need to be infected. Isn't that ridiculous? They were the ones going around becoming super spreaders. They were the ones making stupid decisions, calling for an election in a place where they shouldn't be an election. They could have delayed it. They were not following the Muslim precepts. They were not following the hadith of the Prophet. There are hadiths of the Prophet that say when there is a deadly disease like this now, you should avoid it. You should not go out. You should not congregate. It's very simple. This is the Prophet's hadith. And yet, still, the Muslims in this country were pressuring their political masters, or the political masters were pressuring them, saying that no problem, we will just reduce the numbers and put it in a smaller quota, but you can still do whatever you want. You opened the Ramadan Bazaar, which was a bad idea, simply because the pressure groups told you this is our bread and butter. And yet this infected more people. Then you allowed festive celebrations, although at a reduced scale, but you still did that, and it made the virus spread even more. Where is the sensibilities? You claim that you are defending Islam. You claim that you are defending the Muslims, and yet you are not. You are doing the exact opposite. The prophetic hadith you are ignoring. What the Prophet advises you, you don't listen to. How do you call yourself a good Muslim? How do you call yourself a good leader when you do these kind of things? How can you now appoint ministers to your cabinet that have no experience in certain areas, and yet they are there making decisions. This is a bad thing. This is one of those things that we said is stupid, because you are doing the same thing expecting a different outcome. What about our education system? Still nothing has been done. We've been complaining for years that it's been fractured. Not only fractured, it is completely destroyed. And yet you are still doing the same thing, expecting a different outcome. Load the education system with even more additional things. You've got the IT, you've got the artificial intelligence, you've got fourth industrial revolution on your mind, without realizing that the fourth industrial revolution, with its emphasis on artificial intelligence and robotics, is going to reduce the number of jobs in this country. What are we going to do about that? Why instead, when we try to think about reviving our economy, why are we looking again in that same kind of vein? Why aren't we thinking outside of this vein? Think to ourselves, what about agriculture, the importance of agriculture in this country? Farming. We get the impression that, oh, we're going back to the old days where we're back-breaking work. No. It's the modern era now. There are modern technologies, modern farming methods. Why are we not adopting those? We have a lot of arable land. Unfortunately, a lot of the arable land has been sacrificed for palm oil. And the palm oil is not benefiting the farmers. It's benefiting big business. What about the farmer? What about the ordinary people who want to do farming, who think of themselves that maybe this is a good idea, especially in Malaysia? Malaysia's number one in terms of the economy is agriculture. That's the number one sector. Yet, we are not emphasizing the farmers. We should give them access to new technologies. We should give them access to new methods of farming. Teach them new methods of farming. Teach them how to create a bigger harvest, a bigger yield on a smaller plot of land. We have lots of land, and yet, like I said, most of it is being used or being appropriated by big business. We should think. We're not thinking. Our education system, fractured, completely broken. Instead of trying to reduce our dependency on foreign curriculums, what about our own curriculum? We talk about an Islamic education, and people have the impression that Islamic education is just Quran and the law, fiqh and sunnah. It's not that. An education is all-encompassing. We're not saying that it's not important to, of course it's important to read the Quran, it's important to learn it, it's important to learn how to read, it's important to learn how to behave, it's important to learn how to know all the rituals that you have to do as far as the religion is concerned. That is extremely important. But at the same time, you also have to emphasize the sciences and the humanities. Without that, there is no more humanity, and that's what we find happening today. Humanity is at a very, very low level.